You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
We are going 2 for Monday. Don't worry, we're also doing 2 for Tuesday. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground as a whole publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. If you missed episode number 1 from Monday, just to reiterate what I said at the top of that show, I apologize for missing Thursday and Friday. If you remember, I had a sore throat that caused me to miss a day or two a couple weeks ago. Turned out it was an ear infection. I got penicillin for the ear infection. It turns out I'm allergic to penicillin, and I found out the hard way. Thus I missed a couple shows. I appear to be fully, if not fully recovered, about as close to fully recovered as you can be. But I was also very hyped up on Benadryl and things of that nature. When I say hyped up on Benadryl, I don't mean like I took one like a day. I mean, I took 2 every like 3-4 hours and was just in a stupor. So nonetheless, that's our prologue. We're doing the Michigan Mailbag today. And to make up for Thursdays, which we can't ever seem to get them on Thursdays anymore, and my fault most of the time. This one, maybe not. But we are going to just dig right in. Starting with James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Is there anything to make of Marion Walker switching his number to number 1 with Jaden McBurrows already using that number? If you could choose one player, non-QB, to play at a first team All-American level, who would you choose? Apologies, I opened my mail and didn't close it there. I would probably, for the latter part, go with the defensive end. Because usually if you have that edge rush production, changes everything for the back end of the defense. Obviously, we saw that with Aiden Hutchinson. David Ajabo was there as well. But, you know, whenever Michigan's had that, they've usually been pretty freaking good on defense. And certainly makes things feel unsettled. So I would go the defensive route with that. As far as the number with the Marion Walker and Jaden McBurrows and all of that, I don't think it makes a difference. I think he just probably, wanted it and is going for it. And you know what? It'll get resolved. I mean, certainly it would keep them from being in a 3-way rotation, being on the field at the same time, or at least theoretically. It didn't stop Jaden McBurrows from being on the field in 2022 at the same time as who was wearing number 1 beforehand on defense? Why am I blanking? Or maybe it was just a special teams player. I just remember there was a point where there was a penalty. I saw Jaden McBurrows out there, and the previous number 1, who's just for some reason my roster remembrance at the moment is off. I was like, well, that's going to be a penalty. And sure enough, flag. That was a special teams play, like in the very early season. I think it was like first or third game in 2022. So I don't make anything of it. They'll get it figured out. If it goes into the season that way, different story. Josh Barr at Jadicke, since it's been made clear Moore is going to be the offensive coordinator, do you know if he plans on staying on the sideline or if he's going to take him to the booth to call plays? I imagine he'll still stay on the sidelines. That way he can interface with the offensive line still. You don't have to have that. I'd imagine Kirk Franklin will be up in the booth, and they'll still, I'm sure, have some similar interfacing. But Gaddis was down on the field calling plays, then went up to the booth, and then he came back down. There were, Jed Fish up in the box, Tim Drevno on the field. Fish was calling probably more plays than Drevno. Pep Hamilton in the booth. You don't have to be an offensive coordinator and be up in the booth necessarily, as long as you're still able to see things. And I'm sure that he's got a pretty good feeling from being down on the field this past year and calling, I would guess, the bulk of plays. My brother in metal, Michael Wolf at MWolf21 with the new SP guitar. It's sweet. If you were able to make one change to the offense and defense, what would they be? I don't know that I'm smart enough to make those kinds of decisions, to be honest. I think I do know what I would want to do on offense. I don't know that I have an answer for you on defense. On offense, it would just be to be more holistic, to do things, as Josh Gaddis actually used to say, to put the defense in conflict. Michigan has all of that available to them. You want to stop the run, we can pass on you. You want to stop the pass, we can run on you. You want to stop the quarterback from whatever. He can throw, he can pitch, he can do all. Like, they have a type of offense that theoretically could be indefensible, especially with the offensive line they have. And yet sometimes they get predictable. We're just going to run it down your throat, which I think is a boon for the offensive line and the running backs, and sometimes no one else. So that would be the one thing I think I would change up, is just become ungovernable on offense. Defensively, I don't know that I have an answer for you, to be honest. Find a way to start quicker than they did. I don't have like one big change, though, unfortunately. Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. Which of the position switches announced so far do you expect to pay the biggest dividend? It would be Amarian Walker. I mean, there's not a lot of others. I mentioned in the earlier show, Alessandro Lorenzetti is the only other one that I'm currently recalling. I'm sure Kalel Mullings is still kind of like everyone else that's done these position switches has kind of already done it. Sainer still obviously could be the biggest one overall, but there's no one else that I'm looking at and saying, hey, all right, it's Amarian Walker, because it's at a position of need. Number 2, if you had to predict now, which home games do you see being under the lights? Interesting. I hope it's not Indiana. We remember how that went a couple years ago. That was dreadful. But really bad home slate again. And obviously they're going to try to do it that way, to where they're going to have something under the lights. But I mean, Ohio State is the only one that's worth the price of admission, because you don't have a Washington on the schedule this time around. So I could see them making the season opener, or any of the non-conference games. I could see them making a BTN under the lights. As far as Big Ten is concerned, it's probably Indiana again. That's pretty bad. But like, again, you've got the 3 non-conference games. You've got Indiana, Rutgers, and Purdue. I mean, I guess it could be Purdue. They could always say, I think that's the first one in November, right? They could always kind of be like, it's the rematch of the Big Ten matchup. And then Ohio State, I think that's your whole home slate. That's all you're working with. It's not great. Number 3, did you see the new Ant-Man and Wasp? And if so, what are your thoughts? I did see it. I know it didn't get great reviews, but I had a great time. I liked it better than the majority of what's come out in the phase 4 or whatever this is of the MCU. I very much liked it. I just liked I thought the special effects were really cool in that world. It was just really interesting. Very high concept, and I thought it was executed pretty well. KRT at Farmark84 ask a similar question to Stan at Dazed and Confused 18. They both ask, what's the big spring football storyline? I mean, it's really just, how does Amarian Walker do? Because we got, and how does JJ McCarthy look? And we don't necessarily know them. Stan Moore asks, is there any interesting? It's too early to really know. It's really the Amarian Walker of it all. Blake Corum's not a go yet. It won't be until summer conditioning. I didn't hear anything about Donovan Edwards. I don't really know his status. How does the offensive line congeal? Though there's guys that are not, it sounds like Drake Nugent and Miles Hinton aren't up to speed. Ladarius Henderson is not there. Best way I can say that. Anyway, it's so I think that's really the only thing is that. All right, finishing us out in segment 1, Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. Who do you think will be CB2? I do think it'll end up being Amarian Walker, just based off of, it sounds like he is ahead of Jaden McBurrows at the moment. And if he's already ahead of Jaden McBurrows and they're in love with his athleticism and his physicality and all the things that he brings, all these intangibles and tangibles, I think it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. But I still think you'll see Jade McBurrow's in rotation. Mike Sainer still, I think you'll see in rotation as well. And they'll get that all figured out. They got a lot of time, though. That's the good news. All right, we're going to continue on. Plenty more questions coming up. But first, looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories, and you've got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. And if you're like me, where you want to eat healthier, but you don't want to compromise taste, then man, I've got just the thing for you. You've got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you won't even think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been telling you to go to Built.com to buy your Built Bars. Well, now you can go to your local Sam's Club or Walmart. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section. You can get a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box. Their hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. All right, so many more questions. So little time. Let's get to it. Jim at Jim in the North, starting out the Victor's Valiant. How many more Ravens DCs are out there? Well, you could switch. Hope you get Mike McDonald back, but no. We'll get to the Jesse Minter of it all here in a moment, because I do have another question that's more direct at that. But yeah, it's you hope that the status quo continues on for at least another year. At least another year. Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. I don't have a question this week. Just want to brag that my team won the Daytona 500 this weekend. Big congratulations, my man. I saw the picture. That's very, very cool. I don't know what you do over there, but that looked like a blast. If you're in for MIS this summer or whatever, I don't know anything about the whole NASCAR thing. MIS had me to their race a couple years ago, 2019. I didn't know what I was looking at. So feel free to have me out. Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore. If your Jawan would roll you out of the Reed Dickinson lineup, roll you out the Reed. I'm having a hard time figuring this out. If you're Jawan, would you roll out the Reed Dickinson lineup the next 4 games to see what happens? We don't have too much to lose. And I only watched the last 5 minutes of the game before overtime started, so I didn't see if they went with that. Obviously, the backcourt's working real good. So I was in a Benadryl stupor still yesterday, so I didn't get to see much of it. But the backcourt's working real good. I think that when we've seen those two out there, it's been pretty good. But you run the danger of more fouls. Reed fouls a lot. And you don't necessarily get a lot of offense from him generally. So I don't know. But you know what they're doing right now is working. Buffkin and McDaniel have been phenomenal. Gary Moore at G-Dog 4UM7. Do we have a QB for 24? They're still all eggs in the Jaden Davis basket. Is Braden McGregor poised for a breakout year? I feel that way. I've been singing his praises since he was a high school recruit. I thought he came on real strong late in the year last year. I feel like he's the name to watch. He and Derek Moore. No offense to Jalen Harrell, who I think was a lot better than we kind of give him credit for. But Braden McGregor's the guy that I feel like is going to take everything up a big notch. First time question asker going in here as far as in the podcast, but she's a regular on the Instagram. So Linda Manson at LJMGoBlue. Any new news on Jesse Minter's status at Michigan? I love your podcast, Isaiah. God bless you, and I hope you are feeling better. Thank you. I appreciate that. God bless you as well. I am feeling better. Thank God. And last I saw, it's Sean Desai is, I believe, the name that they seem to be targeting at the moment. Sean Desai from the Seahawks. associate head coach, going in for a second interview. No word on Jesse Minter as of right now. So that is where things stand at the moment when it comes to that. Sounds like at the moment things are safe. We haven't heard Jesse Minter's second interview. That could change in a hurry. But what hasn't been good is the co-DC for the Georgia Bulldogs, who was interviewing, has pulled his name out of consideration. And they wanted Vance Joseph kind of initially, and he's, I think, gone to the Broncos. So that's where they're at there. This one's going to be a long one. We're going to try to race through it, though. JJ Brewer at JJ Brewer 19, who is your number 1 and number 2 at each position? Quarterback JJ McCarthy, Davis Warren. Running back Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. Wide receiver Cornelius Johnson, Roman Wilson. Tight end AJ Barner, Colston Loveland. Left tackle. This is going to be hard. Left tackle Ladarius Henderson and Jeff Percy. Left guard Trevor Keegan, Gio El Hadi. Center Drake Nugent, Raheem Anderson. Right guard Zach Zinter. This is where things get a little tricky. I'll also say Raheem Anderson there. Right tackle Carson Barnhart, Trente Jones. Defensive end, and yes, I'm just going to lump some of these together. Jalen Harrell, Braden McGregor, and they could be either end. So we'll add maybe a third in there and say Derek Moore. And I'm sure I have another one that I can't think of. Defensive interior, I'll just list the 4. Again, can be interchangeable to some degree. Chris Jenkins, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, and Rayshawn Benny. Linebacker, Junior Colson, Michael Barrett for 1, maybe 2. I don't know. Again, somewhat interchangeable. Then we'll go Ernest Hausman, Nakai Hill Green for the other. Safety, it's just a 3-man rotation, really, of Rod Moore, Makari Page, RJ Moten. Cornerback, it's, I would say, Will Johnson and Amarian Walker. Nickelback, we'll say, I don't know if Jade McBrose would be there, but it's just clearly Mike Sanders still. So that's it. That's the whole team. Unless you really punter Tommy Doman, I'll go kicker Adam Samaha. We'll see if that ends up holding true. Ike Hamlin at Hamstand87. Can we revisit my tweet to you asking why Ohio State fans slandered Jesse Minter? TF, they got to say now. Real question, are starters on a pitch count for the spring game? I mean, they always are. You know, you're not going to see starters play the whole game. But yes, they're always on a pitch count. I wasn't going to do it myself, but I did. I was trying to goad Clayton Sayfie from On3. I was trying to goad him into this. I went and found a bunch of those old tweets that they were saying, like on the announcement, like going into like Adam Schefter's tweets and Ian Rappaport and all the people that reported, you know, Jesse Minter is coming to Michigan, and found all the Ohio State ones. I was sending them all to Clayton because I'm like, this is the type of thing that the kind of obnoxiousness that Clayton likes to thrive in, hoping that he would just go and retweet them all after Michigan won. I did this, I believe, either not before the season, more early in the season when it was pretty evident the defense was pretty good. So you're right on. Mark Z at Mark Zimke, do you have a preferred interview style, rapid fire questions, conversations, etc.? And do you interview with the end result in mind, or do you just let it play out and write later? I prefer, if it's one, it's very different depending on the kind of context of what it is. If it's a one-on-one, I do try to be more conversational. I don't really do rapid fire. I tried that with Trevor Keegan at the Fiesta Bowl media day thing, and it was just like I was asking him the weirdest, like whatever, like improv style, like whatever questions comes to mind. Like, you're about to fight a bear. What do you do? You know, just like those types of questions. Like, that's the first thing I can think of. I try to be conversational to some degree. I try to think about whatever's topical. Obviously, what do we want to know the most is, I think, the thing. and then try to build off of, something that someone said. And I mean, you've seen it here on the show when I'm interviewing people. I don't sit down and have like a list of questions I'm going to ask ever. I mean, I know my subject, so I don't really ever sit down and so like when you see like me, the times that we've had like Anthony Treesh or Seth Galina on the show from PFF, or when we had Desmond Howard, or anytime we've had any guest on the show, Joel Klatt, I'm more listening to what they're saying and then building my questions off of that to intermixed with what do I want to know from this person? I interview Joel every year at Big Ten Media Days. I've been doing it since 2016 or 2017. And that's how I've built my relationship with him. And I already know kind of generally what I'm going to ask him. Like, I could tell you probably right now what I'm going to ask him, right? If I was really to think about it. And it's not because I have some premeditated, I just know the types of answers I want to get from him. That's just kind of how it works. The one thing that you'll notice, I'm going to tell you one of my tics. It bothers me immensely. I always lead from one question to the next by saying now. Get done answering a question. I go, now, blank. I can't stop doing it. There you go. KM at Keith_1906. What caused the biggest issue between Hilo and Harbaugh? I don't think there was like an issue. I just think that Chris Partridge became available and Harbaugh wanted to bring him home. That's kind of what Harbaugh alluded to when I asked him at the outset of the press conference on Thursday. And the intel that I got was what they weren't trying to lose Hilo. They wanted to bring in Partridge again. So, Adam Kasel at Adam_Kasel finishing us out in segment 2. Apart from Mike Sainristil, which position switches had the biggest impact on the football team? I mean, that's in a way Kalel Mullings. For good against Purdue, because that was kind of the pulling away was his 2 touchdowns, and for bad in the Fiesta Bowl. Otherwise, I mean, what other guys are there that are, real big position switch guys? I'm not recalling any other big names that made some big position switches other than Sainristil and Amarian Walker at the moment. Does JJ make a bigger leap from starter year 1 to year 2 than normal since he missed last year's spring ball and summer workouts? Where do you think he improves the most? I think so, and I hope it's in recognizing what defenses are doing. And also accuracy, because remember, he started off the year being the most accurate. Like the first half of the year, after 6 games, he was the most accurate quarterback in football. And then it fell off a cliff. They didn't really try passing the ball that much against Penn State, and then they tried against Rutgers, and it didn't really work out that great. But those first 6 games, he was the most accurate quarterback in football. And then the reading defenses part is because obviously didn't make good choices in the TCU game. So that's where I would hope. Accuracy, you hope, is number 1, because it's sometimes you can make bad choices. As long as you're accurate, it's probably not even going to matter. We've seen him do that sometimes, right? All right, we're going to continue on here. The rest in just a moment. So many questions left. So little time. Let's get to the rest. Dustin Wyckoff at Dusty1078. Who is the most successful football player in Michigan history not named Tom Brady, and why? Tom Brady was the most successful in Michigan history. He was the most successful Michigan player in the NFL, certainly. I mean, you could pick multiple people. I'm going to go with Charles Woodson, because part of me wants to say Tom Harmon. It might be Tom Harmon, but like it's hard to really tell. So I'll go with modern and say Charles Woodson, because he was just that elite, right? He could do everything. He locked down the side of the field. He was dynamic in returning punts. He did it in the biggest moments. He played on offense as well. He was just like an unstoppable force. He was a cheat code. There's a reason why he's the only defensive player to win the Heisman. Ben Ricketts at RickettsBen92. Which freshman will have the biggest impact on each side of the ball? way too early to tell, because certainly you're always going to get those guys that come in the fall that end up making an impact. Like, or they're suddenly expected to. Kenneth Grant didn't come until fall, and he was the talk of the freshman in the fall, and it ended up being Mason Graham that did what you hoped. But Chris Evans was a fall arrival and had a big impact. So it's hard to tell. I would like to say Carmelo English, the wide receiver, could be that guy, and he would be a late arrival. On defense, another late arrival. I'm going to go with Roderick Pierce, because I think he can be an early contributor at defensive tackle. I know it's rare. We saw it happen last year, though, and I feel like they got some guys that can do that. Ronan Sports Talk at Ronan Sports Talk. Any update or rumor on the NIL progress in regards to team-based salaries or other things? No, but we're just kind of waiting for this WME deal to go through. That's not going to necessarily be a team-based salary. I don't know. It hasn't happened yet, and that's wild to me. Brandon Beery at Brandon Beery. Is Clink the DC if and when Minter goes to the pros? One person I talked to said absolutely not. I still, though, think that would probably be, I mean, you would say probably either Clink or Partridge. Partridge has experience, but not with this particular system. Clink's at least been around the system, and he has DC experience. So, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine there. Eric P. at Rowdy3333. Do you believe an increase in RPO usage would help this offense? Not just read option QB runs, but quicker throws to the outside, actual speed and space. Absolutely, as long as there is a recognition. There were a lot of times that JJ had the same age-old problem when he did do the run. And I know that you're talking about the quick pass. I would love to see more of the quick pass game, because you have speed. So yes, I would love to see that. But I would also like to see the read option be utilized more effectively. They didn't use it a ton, and JJ oftentimes did the same thing we've seen every Michigan quarterback not named Denard Robinson seem to have when running a read option, and keeping when they should have gave, and vice versa. The Cadaver, that's a kind of morbid name at the _cadaver. Could Alex Orji play as a fullback or QB on goal line sneaks? Absolutely. I mean, he's built like a linebacker. Absolutely could. But if you're going to do that, put the ball in his hands, get him used to taking a handoff if you do use him as a fullback, because we saw how that didn't work last year. Justin Revord at Justin Revord, if Mitchell leaves, who is the likely candidate to replace him? I meant to bump that up with the other question. I'm sorry about that, Don. MTU 83. Was Michigan underprepared, overconfident, or just picked a bad time to play their worst game against TCU? I don't think they were underprepared. I think that they were overconfident and picked a bad time to play their worst game. I think it was those things. I don't think that they were underprepared. I think that they were prepared fine. I don't think that there was anything that TCU necessarily did that necessarily caught them off guard on either side of the ball. I do think TCU is a much faster team than they thought, and I thought Michigan was super conservative at times, and when they needed to be more aggressive, and super aggressive when they needed to be more conservative. It was just like a Murphy's Law of a game in a lot of ways. James Smith at Smitty JJ09. What will Braden McGregor's production be next year? Is he a guy you're expecting to step up and be an every down guy, take a Mike Morris role? Yes, I know I talked about that earlier. I could see him. I don't know if he's going to be like a full-on 9-sack guy or not, but I would say 7 sacks, and I do think he'll be like a constant on-field presence in the same way Mike Morris was. Nathaniel J at Nathaniel Joel 83, who's the one guy that no one is talking about that could be a breakout player in 2023. Well, Braden's one of them. Tyler Morris would be another interesting one to go with. Wide receiver who could kind of take over that Ronnie Bell role. Defensively, I mean, Nikhai Hill-Green. We don't know, what his role is going to be. He didn't play for a whole year, but Nikhai Hill-Green could come in and just be a monster at linebacker. Probably a lot smarter. He's a heady guy as it is. Just studying the playbook, he could be a lot, and watching things and being kind of a coach on the field type guy or off the field type of guy. Could be Nikhil Green. Paul H. Larn at Paul H. Larn. Detail, name, image, likeness, money works at other D1 powers. Easy, pay for play. Man from the Mitten at Man from the Mitten. Where do we stand with QB recruitment? Another one I forgot to bump up with the other one. Jaden Davis supposedly is expected to make a decision sometime in the next couple weeks, supposedly, but he keeps on bumping it back. They're in talks with Michael Van Buren from St. Francis Academy. They've went and visited Dylan Raiola. So it all kind of hinges on what Jaden Davis does if he makes a decision in the month of March. And finishing us out, William Hahn at William Hahn 99. How many do you think transfer out in the spring? Thanks, Isaiah. You're not going to thank me when I tell you I have no way to predict that. There's no way to predict it at all. Guys, it's just there's no way to tell. It's and there's no obvious answer to any of that either. That's it. That's episode number 2 on the day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back on Tuesday with 2 for Tuesday. What are we going to talk about? I don't know. Probably more Harbaugh stuff. I know a couple people asked me some questions in DMs that will probably turn into some subjects. We're probably going to have to stretch some things out because I don't think we're going to have spring practice interviews this week. And then we'll hopefully get a mailbag in on, we'll probably push it to Friday since we're doing one on Monday. But thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.